So, hello, fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 645563728. And COVID 19, the future, and you. I'm wondering what you might see in the future for you and how this disease might change what you think you might do in the future. Because it's about what you think you might do. Human beings are notoriously bad, and that's not even like really a bad thing, because if we could tell the future, then then we wouldn't really have to worry about it so much, and then maybe it wouldn't even really be the future in the way that we think about it. Or at the same time, it might be that us knowing about the future changes the future, and that's what's happening right now anyway. Anyway, before I get too far off the point, I was talking to some friends of mine today, and I personally was mentioning that, hey, Earthling 65, I think that, as I would have mentioned in another piece, that theaters are out. I went on to say that cruise ships probably out, and probably theme parks as well. I was talking about how Disney is probably hurting really badly right now. And one of my friends was saying that he didn't really think that it would be much of a problem. It's more of an open air thing, for example, at Disney. And my other friend asked him the question that I was thinking. Have you ever been to a theme park? Because any of you who've been to theme parks know that you're basically standing up, as in a long line at an abattoir or slaughterhouse, waiting to get to the head of the line and get killed. That's kind of what it's like. So it isn't this open, quote unquote, open air thing that my friend was thinking of. I don't know what he had in his head. And then he was also thinking, movie theaters, they might not be that bad. All you have to do is space everybody out. And I thought, at that point, I was thinking, okay, great. So you're in the movie theater, the movie's about to start, and somebody starts sneezing or coughing. What are you going to do then? And how many times is that going to happen to you before you stop going to the movie theater, or to a theme park, or on a cruise ship? I don't know about anybody else, but I am not excited to be in any place, or even an airline, actually. That was another one I was thinking of. I am not excited to be in any, especially an airline. The theme park, you're going to be out of the line 45 minutes, maybe an hour. At the movies, it's like an hour and a half, maybe. A cruise line, well, yeah, there are open air areas at a cruise line. On a plane, really? On a plane, really? Do you want to hear anybody cough or sneeze on a plane? And I mentioned this to, my sister, Earthling 285, let's say. And she was saying that, nobody's really going to think that that person has COVID-19 or something. But really? The first time, yeah, maybe it's pollen. If they sneeze again, really? What are you going to do on a plane if someone sneezes 3 times in 5 minutes? Or they cough 3 times in 5 minutes? What are you really going to feel like? I have no interest in doing that. So I don't know about anybody else, but that's really my thoughts on that. I don't want to be anywhere where I have to reduce that panic that builds inside me, like my sister would have been mentioning, and just resign myself to having it. So one of my other friends was mentioning the fact that sometimes he's just thinking, hey, I wish I could just get it and be over with. So I was saying, yeah, I think so. And I think that I'm surprised in a way that there aren't a number of viral videos that are out there about people who might say something like that. Maybe because they might be COVID shamed. Is that the name that we're going to call it? We're going to COVID shame you for wanting this to be over with for yourself. Just go get the virus because you think you're young and healthy. Quarantine yourself for 2 or 3 weeks and then just be done with it. I can see people having that feeling. At the same time, though, I can also imagine that if something like that were to go viral, there might be people who decide that they want to do that too. And finally, there might be someone who has a viral video warning other people about how he went and got sick and inadvertently passed it on to his grandma who's dead. And I wonder if people would try to kill that person, send death threats to them. Now that I'm thinking about it, people probably might not want to have a video like that because people might want to hurt them for inadvertently hurting a loved one. So they probably might, I think that's kind of probably suicide note material. I don't know that anybody might actually go ahead and do a video on that one. But basically, I think that people in those industries, cruise lines and theaters and air travel and theme parks, they should probably be looking for long-term jobs in other industries, perhaps. At some point, those industries may come back. My friend, or one of my other friends, was mentioning that, hey, apparently people are still keeping their reservations. They're not canceling their reservations for cruise lines. And it's a tough one, right? My sister, when I mentioned that to her, she said that, yeah, of course, the cruise lines are not going to give you back your money. So people are holding on to the tickets. And when my friend joked about that, I was like, yeah, he didn't joke about it, but he said it. And I was thinking, I would probably want to do the same thing, like hold my reservation. And then when I got to the cruise ship, I would probably try to hold my breath for the entire cruise. And then my sister was like, oh, you just have to get one of those rooms with a balcony. I'm like, okay, that's all you have to do. You just get one of those. It's so easy. That's all you have to do. Open up the window or go out on the balcony. Make sure you don't get any air from the rest of the ship. But that seems like a tough one. I don't know that is something that might be likely. That said, I was also talking, we were also talking about the fact that I would have thought, given that movie theaters are probably in a bunch, that Oculus would have done a lot better. So my friend Earthling65, he was like, yeah, one of the first things I did when they started is I went and I looked at one of these headpieces and they're still pretty expensive. And I'm like, oh, okay. Is that the reason why they haven't taken off? Because Facebook bought Oculus for $1 billion. Okay. And I'm sure they didn't think it would take this long to get their money back. This is taking quite a while. I would not have thought it would have taken this long for it to be more mainstream. I mean, I've heard how good these haptic feedback sensors can be for your chest and your hands and whatever, so you can feel, get some feedback, if things are real. But this is taking forever. Is this like a Google Glass kind of thing? I mean, I would never have thought that Google Glass would come out and it would get this much pushback. And then those horrible Snapchat, I'm calling it horrible. I don't know. Maybe it was fun. Maybe it was great. This Snapchat glasses came out, which seemed to be a very not good quality version of Google Glass, and people were like, yay. But then, of course, they've proved to be a big loss for the company. Like, they had a whole bunch of them that they never were able to give out, and I guess never really helped. So that was a waste of money. But by and large, I don't know where we're gonna be next year. Because me personally, I don't really go out too much, spend that much money on external activities. So I don't really see that changing too much. But even if I was going out a lot, I probably would be looking to reduce a lot of that, because the longer this lasts, the more people are going to take this as a new normal. I think that either way you look at it, if people are thinking, okay, fine, this is going to be a permanent change, it's probably not going to be as permanent as you think. And people might think, yeah, we'll go right back. It probably isn't. We're not going to go back to things the way that you think that we might. So I guess it's a somewhere in the middle from what our expectations of how life will be. But for me especially, beyond my homeliness, my already homeliness, the fact that I live with elderly people who are only going to be more susceptible to this thing in the coming months and years, I can't see that I'm going to want to catch this thing, because there's no quarantining for me personally. There's nobody else to help me to take care of my uncle and to tag team and ask to be a backup. So there's no me trying to find a way out of this. But and finally, with respect to what I posted about yesterday or earlier this morning, when I was saying that at the end of the day, basically black people had their proportion of violent crime. It wasn't like, twice, they weren't responsible for twice their proportion of violent crime versus against white people. It's not to say that to understate the fact that violence isn't good at all. But at the end of the day, I don't think that anybody can just have an idea that there's a certain amount of violent crime against black people and against white people. White people having a larger population, the number of white people who are going to be victims of any violent crime is going to be much higher. The number of white people who are going to be victims of crime from black people is going to be much higher, I suppose, than it's probably just more white people. That's the reason why you're going to have more crime against white people, even by black people, even though it's a relative proportion to their stake in the population. That said, on issues like racism, no white person has to worry about racism. So does that mean that life isn't fair? Absolutely. Life is not fair. And by virtue of the fact that there are more white people, there are more opportunities for violent crime to be perpetrated against them. But any one individual white person, their chances of being a victim of crime is probably much lower than a minority's chance of being a victim of violent crime anyway, across the board, I would presume. So I would say the numbers even out. Also, I left out the fact that with respect to Latinos in the USA, I think they are 17% of the population, and the total amount of minorities in prison are about 70%. Black people are at about 39%, I believe, 3 times their stake in the population. And I believe Latinos are about double their stake in the population. So I did leave out that minority in the prison culture. I did mention, of course, the Burakim. I think they're in Japan, and I was saying that I think some of my stats in there were wrong. You can go look it up, but my absolute stats were wrong. But they are the victims of a lot of discrimination in Japan, even now, a lot higher than their stake in the population. Whether it is that they're forced into or feel forced into the Yakuza and other crime organizations by the fact that people still look to discriminate against them even now. Anyway, just figured I would add in that bit. Anyway, you can wish me lucks, you can like or unlike, you can comment, subscribe, and or share. And of course, if you can still do nothing, especially if you didn't hear any of this. Peace.